Welcome to the 31st episode of the Nerdom and Other Nonsense Anime Podcast. Today we are going over the summer 2017 season's 13th and final week of shows. Stay tuned for the end of the episode where we will give our final scores and thoughts on each of the shows we have been watching this season, both as part of the podcast and in our own time. Remember, we discuss each week's episodes as they air and we literally spoil everything. That's because we actually like to talk about the anime we watch rather than dancing around it. And we hope you enjoy that type of open discussion. My name is Leo, and I am a replicant. When I watched Riko piss herself one last time in the final episode of Made in Abyss, I remembered that all of these moments will be lost in time, like tears in the rain. Also with me is Bcom.
Hey, what's up? So as you can tell, I totally watched the new Blade Runner this afternoon and then wrote that intro for Leo.
And as you were telling me, you kind of have mixed feelings about it right now.
Yeah, I really think it like captured the original feel of that original Blade Runner movie very well. I think all of the actors were very good in it. I really hated the musical score by Hans Zimmer, though, which, yeah, it was a lot of bois, and he incorporated some of the musical themes from the original score, and I liked those parts, but any part that was just Hans Zimmer's original creation, I hated. So I'm getting really tired of his style, which is just really loud and bassy and annoying. But I would say the movie's worth watching. Like it kind of transports you to a different place, and it's really interesting. So
I have a confession.
What's up?
I should probably watch the first one.
Yeah, you should.
The original, not first, original. I know like everything about it, but I've never watched it.
I forget which version is the one I like the most, either the theatrical cut or the director's cut. I can't remember which one I like more. Whichever one is without Harrison Ford's narration, which they never wanted to include. That's the version I like, the one without the narration. So, I don't know.
Okay, I guess I can just Google that.
Yeah. But we should probably talk about anime.
Okay.
So we got our last week of shows, and we're switching it up a little bit. I want to get one show out of the way because we have a lot of interesting reviews this week. And so
I'll make the rest of the episode better.
Yeah. So we're going to kick it off with Action Heroine Cheerfruit's final episode, which is called Passion Fruits. The girls decide that they have to start rehearsal without Misaki. Remember, she's off feeling bad for herself again. And Misaki's aunt asks...
because when you're in middle school, you can just run off.
and abandon all of your responsibilities. Yeah.
And be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Her aunt, though, she's at the concert hall and she's looking at the portrait of Misaki's grandfather on the wall, and she kind of like prays to him to look out for the girls because she wants them to do well. Misaki herself is like flipping through a photo album of her and her grandfather and thinking that she did all she could, and if only she wasn't here, things might have worked out. She's being very overly dramatic again, as usual. She again imagines Roko yelling at her though for running away, and that makes her upset. So the girls are rehearsing, and they do one particular scene where Roko has a quick costume change. It's kind of weird because she pulls like a string in her waistband and all of a sudden has different boots on, and the rest of her costume just inverts itself or something. It's really weird. It just wasn't animated well, and there's no way this would look like that in real life. So it wasn't the best special effect, and I'll just leave it at that. The show is 30 minutes from starting, and all the girls seem to have the same idea at the same time, and Aoyama reads their minds, but they don't tell the audience what they're thinking. So something is up, but we don't know what yet. And so Misaki is watching the live stream of the show from her phone as it starts up, but she's surprised to see that when they start the show, the girls decided not to change the performance at all. They keep going as if Misaki's character is trapped in another universe and will only appear if they can power this apple. And so she gets really upset because she's saying like, I'm not going to show up for the show. I can't get over there. And she's getting really anxious. But Mikan starts ad-libbing new lines about how she remembers Platinum being their ally. And the other girls are surprised at first, but then they roll with it and all start ad-libbing. And eventually Mikan explains that Platinum's character is affected by a curse that causes her to do damage to herself and equally to her allies whenever she attacks an enemy. So basically they're ad-libbing a story that is just a parallel of what Misaki is thinking about her own life and how whatever she does, it hurts people around her and it always goes wrong. So the whole show basically turns into a therapy session for Misaki, who's watching it. And she's like moved to tears by the performance, and she starts running, and she listens to the performance on her phone with earbuds in as she like rides her bicycle, and she realizes she's been an idiot all along, but she hits a bump in the road on her bike and goes like flying over the barrier and lands really hard. But she gets determined and gets back up and keeps going. But the reason why she finally opens like her locket that they gave her earlier in the season, and it has a little note inside from all of the girls just encouraging her. And so like they said it would, if she ever opened it, she gets like a power up of extra determination. And so she sends a text to Aoyama saying, "I'll be there in 10 minutes. And she just sprints the rest of the way, thinking to herself, "I'll become strong and fight with you all," which I liked that line. It landed with me emotionally, actually. So it just felt honest and kind of earned. So the girls stall for time like they did previous episodes, and Misaki is like still running, and she like slips on a puddle, but she keeps going, and she finally arrives and gives Aoyama some vague instructions for her part, which she also is going to ad-lib. So Mikan gets a signal that it's go time, and she tells the crowd they need to chant Platinum's name, and she's going to arrive on stage. And so they do, and she does. And with real emotion, Roko kind of breaks from character for a second and runs towards Misaki with tears streaming down her face and asks, "How long were you going to make us wait?" But then she just as quickly slips back into her villain character and begins to fight Misaki. And so as Platinum attacks Roko, the rest of the Cheerfruits take damage from the curse and decide they'll all attack together at once and just do their best to endure it. So as Roko goes to land a blow on Misaki, she lets herself be cut down, and Roko then does this quick costume change into Hina Nectar purple. However, it looks like Platinum is dead, and Hatsuri holds her and cries, but she wakes up. She explains that when her positive energy and Roko's negative energy exploded at the same time, they canceled out the curse. So she made a gamble that it would work, and she tells everyone in character, but also kind of in her real words, that she wants to believe in the bond between all of them and apologizes for the idiot that she's been all along and wants to be together with them from now on. And that's how I felt the performance was going to end. But then the screen behind them goes red and blows up in flames, and Aoyama, who is voicing a villain character, is like this embodiment of like this evil castle, like Hanano Castle. And Mikan asks the audience to share their energy with Hina Nectar to overcome this final boss. And so they all chant like, "Hina Nectar, Argo!" And the castle explodes and everybody cheers. And then Hitomi, Misaki's aunt, smiles from the rear of the audience, and she goes to the portrait of Misaki's grandfather and bows to him and thanking him for watching over the girls. So yeah, Misaki at the end thanks the audience for packing the hall and says all 9 of them will sing. And they even bring Aoyama up on stage, finally introducing her as the hero who supported them from behind the scenes. And so we see a brief montage of the girls singing the main theme, like the OP of the show. And then we see that a petition has been made to stop the demolition of the cultural center with an overwhelming number of signatures. This is all part of a montage, and the Cheerfruits also made it to number 2 in the Idol ranking, finally. Yeah, good for them. Yeah, all of the girls get like a little aftermath montage with some standout scenes, like Aoyama Googling like a maneuverable wheelchair, so she can eventually become a bigger part of the performances on stage. And also finding that when she Googled it, her sister had already made choreography for it, so they were on the same page. And they hug each other. It's really nice. And Roko and Hatsuri simultaneously asking Misaki out on a date to a heritage site was kind of funny. As well as Misaki telling Mikan that she has a proposal for season 2 of Cheerfruits called Holy Fruit Warriors. and her draft script is due in 3 days, and she kind of freaks out. And then, the show ends with the girls getting pumped up before the first performance of that new season 2. There's like a time skip there. And we also see that Aoyama's character is the new villain, and the cheer fruits are go, basically. That's the end of the show. I felt this finale was about as good as this show could have ended.
Agree.
Given like how they built up to it and like, what they had up in the air and everything. And it was pure and fun and just embodied everything that I kind of liked about the series. Like, I think they did a good job with the finale. Like it on the whole, it's like an average show, or maybe a little below average, depending on your perspective. But I had fun with it, and it wasn't offensive. Like, there's so many anime that are just straight up offensive this season.
They could have been a lot worse with the fan service. That would have been bad.
Yeah, it could have been way worse. And there was none of that this episode. It was just, the final performance, which was like saving their friend as much as saving the town and putting on a good performance. So it was pretty nice.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, we usually sounds like we dock lots of things for fan service, but if there's going to be a show that is going to be about fan service, I won't dock it for it. Like High School DxD, it doesn't get docked at all for fan service. That's what I kind of watch it for. Same thing with like Hajimito no Gao. It wears it on its sleeve. There's going to be lots of fan service, so I think I like it.
Yeah,
but then you put it in a show like this, and you're like, dude, do we really need a second scene of them in the locker room in their underwear?
Yeah. I feel like fan service when you see it, because I was actually thinking about this while I was watching the new Blade Runner movie today, because there's a lot of scenes that just have like the naked female form in them, like in some way or the other, but it's also like a very thematic of the movie, so it's hard to say whether you should consider that fan service or just a philosophical point that the movie is making about like birth and like sexiness and just a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, that's something you can think about if you go watch the Blade Runner movie. You'll see what I'm talking about. But yeah,
and came back around to Blade Runner already. We didn't make it past the first show.
I'll just say it's a thought-provoking movie, so yeah, it may come up a couple times. All right, you want to move on?
Yeah, speaking of shows that for their final episode have an entire scene that is just overplayed with fan service is Gamers.
Oh my god, that scene is something right there. That is a go buy the Blu-ray scene right there if I've ever seen one.
Episode 12, Gamers and Billing System Talk. This episode was everything Bcom wanted it to be.
A lot of it was. I actually really liked parts of this episode.
I loved the discussions. Yes, I did. We'll get into them in a minute. So for a lot of questioning I have why they put so many of these things in the final episode, but suddenly we get the background on Ichi, and you've probably forgotten who he is, but he was the other guy that joined that game club at the same time that Amano was being asked to.
Right.
So what happened to him was he suddenly just came into being sitting at like an arcade game playing a puzzle game, and he has no memory. He's also naked, and he goes out wandering aimlessly in the streets when he saves a blonde Konoha basically from thugs. Her parents are so grateful they adopt him into the rich family. His life was still plagued by a crime gang trying to steal his little stepsister, and flashes from his past, like of him being tortured and stuff like that. But then, after joining the video game club at his school, he enters a tournament and he beats his opponents with ease. But his final opponent turns out to be his stepsister, who is jealous if he spends any time with anybody else, specifically Karen in the game club. He rushes into his final battle, wondering if Amano and Karen are on the bus right now. That took me by surprise.
Yeah, I was like, while I was watching that, I remember just being like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, I like stopped to make sure I didn't skip an episode.
Very strange.
So it turns out our cast of misunderstanding high schoolers is going on a trip for video game training. This is the onsen trip. Everybody knows where we're going now.
Yep.
So they get there, and Amano and Agiri have a little moment splashing water at each other in the foot bath things, which is a total thing in Japan, which is cool. The other three obviously get pissed because we've done this gag like 3 other times already. They end up having this like a really great conversation about video game prices, and the show starts to turn into what it should have been from the start. Also, that video games can be considered recreational and not have to be useful. Basically, they set up lots of situations where Aguirre, who is basically the outsider to the gamers in the group, questioning a lot of their stuff. And she has like really great points, and the other guys have like really great counters, and it's really good.
It really is.
Discuss some
really
of them, or the ones I found interesting. Yeah. They get to the place where they're staying and settle down for some gaming. Aguirre researches game prices, and she asks what a DLC is. She finds it stupid to pay real money for clothes that your characters can wear in-game. Amano uses the analogy that if Urahara bought her a ring and she were to equip it, would her love for Urahara increase? Amano says, at this point, you've accepted the concept of DLCs.
Yeah, because she's like, yeah, I guess it would.
Yeah. Also, yeah, like I said, this is the hot spring episode for the finale. The girls are in the baths discussing about DLCs, and Karen really likes DLCs that increase the difficulty of a game. It's her favorite kind, and she defends it by saying how good it feels when you accomplish, something difficult. Yeah, I get it. I mean, you and me are both gamers. When you struggle at something, you finally beat it. I mean, Destiny raid bosses, come on. Also, it's just lots of shots of the girls and conveniently placed steam in hair. And like at one point, Chiaki's jumping around and her boobs are just flip flapping. And there's just crotch shots of all three of them and back shots, lots of shots of all three of their boobs.
It's pretty egregious. There's like just a good amount of steam that I assume will be removed in the Blu-rays for skeeziness. But yeah, that was a very... Like, as much as Centaur's Life's like final episode was like really skeevy fan service in the beginning, this was like even more so. I feel like it was pretty revealing.
And the thing that's killing me is like they're having a good discussion about DLC here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have a lot more DLC talk here, but you really need to watch the show to get the full extent of conversations. Otherwise, I'm just writing out the script for you.
Exactly.
So... Another scene with Aguirre and Amano looking like they're flirting and pissing off the other three. Here we go again. Aguirre finally makes a great analogy that games are like food and the DLCs are like extra toppings. But that's like saying the food came out bland and you have to spend extra for some salt. Or you get like a sundae and you have to pay extra for the cherry or the fudge topping. I think that's a pretty good analogy. And I think this is probably a good point for us to discuss DLCs briefly and what we think about them.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how you implement the DLC, and it depends on how well the game came out in its original state. Like, if the game barely functions or is lacking tons of features without the DLC, then that's no good. But if you have like a feature complete game and then you bring out more DLC and it adds like more story, or it adds like a higher difficulty mode and other like
and maybe
cool things,
fixes some things for the better.
Yeah. And then, I mean, there's obviously cosmetic DLC too. I don't know.
Swimsuits.
A lot of that has gone the way of loot boxes, which are, a lot of people have issues with loot boxes, especially if they're not only cosmetic loot boxes. I think Overwatch does a good job with loot boxes, keeping them cosmetic, but also they're awesome cosmetics. Like, so people get very invested in getting all of those items from the loot boxes and stuff. But
oh, really?
But like, then there's also the difference between DLC and like full expansions of games. Like Destiny typically comes out with large expansions, and you get like an expansion pass,
which basically improves all across the board. You get basically a little bit of everything for the most part.
Yeah,
definitely with a lot more story and stuff like that. They also like to. Just even without the DLCs, they like to fix stuff in it. But then when the expansions come out, that's when they usually do their bigger changes in certain things that happen. And I think that's well worth it.
But just one more thing, playing into the rest of this episode too. I mean, Guri's talking about the money that you spend on games. Well, I mean, the price of games has not changed at all with inflation. So like, it's been $60 for as long as I can remember to buy a PC or a video game, like at launch.
They were $40 when I was still buying stuff for the Super Nintendo.
There were some expensive games for Super Nintendo though too. It depends on the game, I think.
I want to say somewhere around N64 and GameCube is when they went to $60 a game.
Okay.
But that's been a long time ago.
Yeah, that's the 90s.
So they haven't budged at all.
So, like, yeah, I mean, the thing is, the truth is that some of these games take a lot of money to make. So if they'll sell it to you for $60. There's also always going to be collector's editions now. But then there's going to be microtransactions or DLC or expansion passes for games because they have to get that money back somehow. And it's getting tough, too, because, you know, gamers know that games will be on sale probably like a month after they're released now. So if you wait even a month or sometimes even weeks after the release, it'll be on sale these days because there's such a short window to make that money back. So it's just an interesting topic to discuss DLC, pricing of games. I was really happy to hear all that in this episode.
Yeah, and this is what the show should have focused more on rather than and there was one specifically that I really liked when they did the game of life. Where they were focusing on the relationships and stuff, and kind of the game was talking about games and stuff wasn't there. But I still would have loved to see a lot more of this.
Yeah, like it doesn't have to be the whole show, like just discussions about games. But if you could have blended the relationship stuff more with analogies about the current gaming landscape, I would have loved that. So the
show would have been phenomenal at that point.
That's what I hoped for from the first episode, and we didn't quite get that. So yeah.
Oh, is there anything else you want to add about it?
So, like, let's see. This is all I went over there. Oh, yeah. I just felt like, so they were talking about games putting out like higher difficulty levels as DLC, and I thought that was like a direct hit at like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. But I don't know, because there may be more games in Japan that do that. There aren't a ton of games that put out higher difficulty modes as DLC here. It's like, I know a couple games that have done it, but it's not super common. And Legend of Zelda is by far like the most marquee game that has done that.
True.
What was I going to say? I was wondering if Chiaki's line about how she likes to see the epilogue after finishing an RPG is a commentary on what they're doing with this episode, which feels like an epilogue OVA more than like the finale of the show. So that kind of seems like a little bit meta to me, how like we're watching the epilogue of the show and she's talking about how she likes to see the epilogue. Also, there was a really random Terraform Mars reference when it was like Gila for Mars. And
I read that manga. I don't know why.
That was like the most censored anime I've ever seen. It was ridiculously censored. And yeah, Keita was in that like poster in a Squid Girl outfit, which was kind of funny. But yeah, that's about all I have to say.
Well, you have one more thing about Chiaki's character. Did you want to talk about that?
Oh yes, I forgot about this. Yeah, so I was kind of pissed about the way the show wrote Chiaki's character, because she had literally nothing to do in this final episode. To be fair, this episode was more like an OVA that had nothing to do with the main narrative. But what was the point of her character if she was never going to tell Keita how she felt about him?
The point of her character was so that the show could bring in Konoha. That's my theory.
Yeah.
They really wanted to bring in Konoha because they had to bring her in to help push Chiaki along. That's why.
That's like a circular argument.
Yes, it's very back asswards, but that's my theory.
Yeah, but so if I don't know, I understand that this story is still ongoing, and so in the manga, maybe Chiaki is going to eventually tell Keita, but I would have liked her to tell him in that second to last episode what was actually going on.
Yeah, it definitely has to be ongoing. There was absolutely zero closure in this final episode. Yeah. Zero.
Yeah, so I just felt a little annoyed at Chiaki for not putting things on the table. But she is by far not my most hated character. It's still Tasuku by far. So
Uehara?
Yeah, Uehara I just can't stand. So, but yeah.
Agiri is too good for you.
So yeah, that's about my final thoughts on gamers.
Yeah, that's all I got too. I got a little bit more to say when we do our scoring at the end though.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the next show, which is the finale of Rage of Bahamut, Virgin Soul.
Woot woot!
Episode 24, Run, Nina, Run. Which I suppose is a reference to Run, Lola, Run? I don't know. Anyway.
I was thinking, run, Forrest, run.
Yeah, maybe it's that. Could be.
It doesn't help that my roommate just watched Forrest Gump the other day, so it was on the top of my mind.
All right, so let's see how they finished off this series, because man, has it been controversial on the internets afterwards. But we'll get into it. The fully resurrected Bahamut starts unleashing fiery attacks against the city of Anatai, and our heroes are still leaning over Kaiser's body. And with his last words, he tells Cherios, "Death, it's so peaceful." And then he passes away. Kaiser actually dies, with Nina just like wailing over his body. And then Bacchus's carriage is in flames, and Nina carries everyone out on her back to safety. And the hippogriff from the carriage is still alive and walks up to her, and she looks around the burning city, and she then triggers a past memory of her father leaving to help during Bahamut's first assault 10 years ago.
I also want to say they CGI'd this hippogriff and just shoved it into your eye hole.
Yeah, this hippogriff
I felt like
had just I feel like the hippogriff looked worse and worse as the series went on. It never looked good to begin with, and it just got even worse as it went on. That was pretty bad CGI with that thing.
Yeah, they had a super close up with it, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah, that did not come off well. So Favreau comes to and tells Nina not to worry about him, but to listen. Also, by the way, I think in that first scene, it was Rita who was wailing over Kaiser's body, crying, not Nina, because Nina would have been somewhere else. Anyway.
Yeah, Nina was in the carriage that crashed with Favreau and
exactly.
Bacchus.
Yeah. So Favreau explains to Nina that 10 years ago, in order to seal away Bahamut, he sacrificed the life of a girl he had promised to protect, meaning Amara, obviously, and chose this world over her. So he asks Nina, "What will you choose?" And she yells, "Him!" And then she runs off, meaning that she chooses Cherios, even after all he's done over saving the entire world. So that's...
I just want to say, going by that logic, if you don't save the world, there's no you and her in the first place. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah. So she runs towards Bahamut and transforms into dragon form. And Favreau implores her, tear that thing to shreds for everyone's sake, basically. And Cherios tells the others, after the beast is taken down, if I'm still alive, then you can do as you please with my life. He doesn't care at that point. He just wants to take down Bahamut. So he starts on his way down to the Dromos weapon. In a mirror of last season's finale, the demons and angels again come together to erect a huge barrier around Bahamut, containing its power. Cool. Yeah. And Cherios inserts his sword into the Dromos weapon, which starts a power-up sequence, and it transforms itself into this huge rail gun thing. However, Nina flies to him and lands on him just naked, because she transforms from being a dragon. So she's clinging onto his back naked, and she tells him that if he's going to give his life, then she is too, and holds onto his hand, which is grasping the sword that powers the weapon. And he tells her, "There's no need for this. There's no need for you to die." And she yells that, "I'm not giving up on us." So Dromos then transforms into a dragon and shoots a laser out of its mouth, just like Bahamut's laser. And Bahamut does the same in return, and the energy of the blast, meets in the metal. But the Dromos' energy slowly works its way towards Bahamut, pushing back, and then consumes Bahamut in this giant explosion. And Favreau is somewhere else, looking on. He whispers, "Amara." He's thinking about what just happened to her, potentially. So we see Nina, and she's in this white, silent void. And who else but Amara floats towards her and hugs her. And Nina is a little uncomfortable about this, because they're both naked at the time. She's like, this is a little weird. But Amara whispers something to her that we can't hear at the moment, but it'll be important later. And so when we also see Jean come to, and she sees that Dromos' head has been destroyed by the blast.
It's Bahamut.
No, it's Dromos that's the head that's been destroyed. I guarantee.
Dromos is the weapon. No, the weapon turns to ash and floats away.
Maybe it is Bahamut. Because it is like a dragon with its head blown off. But I was confused because Dromos also turned into a dragon. So I thought it was Dromos that had been destroyed.
Yeah, Bahamut got his head blown off, and then his body's landed in that sitting position.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. That makes more sense than I thought. So the townspeople cheer as they see that Bahamut has been defeated, and Azazel wonders if it's actually dead. Rita can only think of Kaiser, who she's still holding in her arms. And Nina and Cherios lay still with their hands still together, and Cherios' finger twitches just to let us know that he is still alive. And Favreau thinks that he's glad to call Nina his apprentice after what she did. So then we get to the epilogue, and we see Nina running through the town, kind of like her normal self. She's like got this smile on her face, and she's dictating a letter to her mother in her mind, saying that the capital is busy with reconstruction. We also see that fresco painting from the beginning episode is now a new mural of the final battle to defeat Bahamut. Also, very controversially, Cherios became a hero because of that battle. And he has now also completely lost his sight forever. He had already lost sight in one eye, but now he's completely blind because of what he sacrificed to use the weapon.
What do you think about that?
So I think it's very realistic for Cherios to become a hero, because there are very few people in that world that actually know what Cherios did to resurrect Bahamut.
True.
Like the vast majority of society would just see that Bahamut had resurrected for some reason, and that Cherios had taken him down with some girl who they don't know. So
I completely agree. When you told me that there was some people upset about this, I was very confused.
Well, I mean, Cherios has done awful things. Like he enslaved the demons. And we find out also in this montage that the demons are now no longer slaves, but they're also not like happy. You know, they're still pretty pissed about what they went through, but they're kind of getting back into society. But
like
like
leaving the past in the past a little bit and just learning to work together.
Cherios is definitely a flawed, if not evil, figure in a lot of ways. But
them all working together was Kaiser's last wish, so he kind of got it.
Yeah, that's true. That is also true. So John, we also find out, is left to live in the land of the gods. There's a brief scene of her and Azazel praying over Elle's grave at her little cottage before she goes back. Nina doesn't know where Azazel went after that. Bacchus and Hamza are just the same old. They never change. Rita is very depressed from losing Kaiser, but she's really no grumpier than usual. She's pretty grumpy always anyway. But we find out that from Hamza, that Nina lost her voice in the Dromos attack. So that's what she sacrificed to use the weapon with Cherios. And probably because she sacrificed her voice, Cherios didn't die. I assume he would have died if he had used the weapon alone.
Agreed.
Rocky crawls up Rita's shoulder after that little tidbit, and she smiles at Rocky and grabs the hand, which was a really sweet moment, I thought. Sophiel shows up with the blonde angel girl with the glasses to have dinner with Bacchus and Hamza and Rita and Nina. And Rita offers to teach Sophiel how to make the meal that they're eating so she can feed it to Bacchus, who is clearly in love with Sophiel. So that's like a budding relationship there. Favreau shows up at dinner and tells them he's going to leave soon to get back to his life of wandering. And he tells Nina to take care of herself. And he goes to leave, but she runs after him as he walks away. And she can't speak, obviously, but she's like motioning at him. Nina is so cute. Like when she has to use only her body language to express herself, it's very, very cute. It's very well animated. But she also writes a message on the ground to him because she needs to tell him about Amra. She says, I met her then, and just that she wishes Favreau the best. And it's really good job of animating his reaction to this, because he almost breaks down in tears, but then recovers with a big, smile, like his typical smile. And he asks Nina, which way does the wind blow? And she writes out tomorrow on the ground.
Probably the biggest throwback.
Yeah. So we see the blind Cherios sitting on his throne at the castle, and somebody comes up behind him and puts her hands on his and stands him up. It's obviously Nina. And they start dancing under this starry night, even though he can't see it because he's blind. And then at the end of the dance, she kind of like falls into his arms very gently. And it's kind of sweet romantic moment for the two of those characters. After the credits, a tremendous force just emerges from the ground, and it swallows up that husk of Bahamut and creates a blinding light in the sky, and then disappearing as suddenly as it appeared, like takes like the husk of Bahamut with it. So Favreau is looking on when this happens and thinks to himself, Bahamut isn't dead. Isn't that right, Amara? And he then hears Kaiser's voice like calling out to him through the wind.
Favreau!
Yeah, Favreau! Like just yelling at him like he's really angry from like the first season. And I at first when I heard this, I was like, he's just hearing a voice from his past or something. But then huge freaking thing happens.
I was waiting for it.
I didn't think...
The moment he died, I was waiting for this.
I had no idea this was going to happen. So it took me by surprise.
No, my first thought, Rita's a necromancer. Come on.
So Rita is saying to somebody, you'll see him again soon enough. And standing next to her is a zombie Kaiser who she basically brought back to kind of life anyway. As much of a life as being a zombie can be. So yeah, I guess she loved him so much she couldn't let him go.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the...
So when's season 3?
I don't know. But it's definitely set up for one. And probably a little bit more focused on Favreau maybe as well. So I've seen the ending of the show get just a ton of negative reaction. Specifically for Cheerios not getting his like just desserts for being as evil as he was. And also people felt that Nina's love for him was kind of flimsy and superficial and like a teenage girl like first love, and that like maybe she should have, you know, favored some of her friends over Cheerios. Like she just supported him no matter what. And then so did Kaiser, really. I mean, you could say that it's about honor, but he like, I don't know. I feel like he should have stood up for his friends over Cheerios at certain points as well. But maybe he just felt they all had to, like you said, they all had to come together and work together to defeat Bahamut. But then the other big problem is that Bahamut isn't dead. So everything Cheerios did to bring Bahamut back early
was for naught in the end.
It was kind of for naught, yeah. And so maybe it would have been better to just wait this whatever 100 years it takes for Bahamut to naturally resurrect and build alliances between the demons and the angels and also strengthen mankind. Like it seemed like he had this idea in his head that he had to enslave the demons and he had to weaken the angels in order to make mankind strong enough to wield this weapon that he thought would end Bahamut once and for all. But all of that was wrong. Like they didn't quite understand the power of the weapon, or they didn't.
I wanted to say it's a lot shorter before he comes back. Like it was like 12 years.
Yeah, I don't remember if they ever said. I'm sure they did at some point, but
I just remember them telling me, and it just made me think of Amir's sacrifice, and I was like, only for that short amount of time? Mm-hmm. What the hell? So
I wonder if the weapon would have worked, but maybe Amara was somehow protecting Bahamut. Like, I wonder. I don't know. Maybe her being inside Bahamut like offers some kind of protection that it would not otherwise have had from Dromos.
I don't know. And what was that force that took Bahamut's body in the end?
I don't know. Who knows? Season 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved that we finally got closure between Favreau and Amara. I was really surprised how much of this final episode was about Favreau and Amara when they didn't really focus on it for much of this season. So I'm glad that we like got a lot of closure there. And I'm just satisfied now that Amara is still alive in some sense, and that she forgives Favreau for the choice he made. And maybe in a potential season 3, they'll be reunited for real. But even if they're not, I'm kind of happy with how this went. I did have one thought, though, about this series. And it's that I feel like I could have enjoyed this more if it had gone a slightly different direction. And what I came up with was that I think the show could have been more interesting if Favreau had played the role of Cheerios. So if you imagine that after Favreau defeated Bahamut in the end of the first season, people saw him as a hero and then made him the next king. But imagine he's just agonizing over the choice and he's just, you know, completely feeling guilty over sacrificing Amra, so he decides to resurrect Bahamut early. I think that would have been more interesting than just adding Cherios as a new character who a lot of people hate. It would have been a little bit more balanced for Favreau to have gone evil in this sense, because people would remember the good Favreau, and you would know that like Kaiser would be trying to redeem Favreau.
It would feel so out of character for him, though.
I don't know, because what if just sacrificing Amra changed him, though? Well, he's kind of an asshole. I can't see him like enslaving demons.
Not evil.
Yeah, I can't see him enslaving demons. Like maybe doing that was just going too far, but I can't see him like pushing the boundaries.
If they did
to bring
that,
back
they're
Amra.
basically just writing a new character at this point, just using his face. I don't know.
I guess so. I don't know, but yeah, I think there would have been some interesting drama if they had gone down that path, but we'll see. Maybe we'll do something similar in a potential season 3, but I don't know. What were your thoughts about the show in the end?
I'm fine with the end. You've already said it, but Cherios, the way his ending was, it is definitely the most realistic. It totally makes sense. They would all see him as the hero.
Yeah.
They had no idea that he resurrected, Bahamut himself and did all these other kind of bad stuff. So that just being realistic, I think people, what they're throw up about it is that, they wanted Cherios to, get his end desserts, but that's what they wanted, even though they know that like this was the most realistic. They're just not like realizing it. Like if you would have gotten that, then people would have been like, well, it doesn't really make sense that they all, put him at the stake because they just saw him save Bahamut. They didn't know there had to have been some big reveal to everybody that he actually resurrected Bahamut himself and knew about his crazy idea. So I'm totally fine with this ending. This is one of the best series out there.
Yeah, it's really strong.
Have, 38 episodes total?
Yeah, basically.
Because the first season was only 12 episodes, wasn't it?
I think so. 12 or 13, I can't remember.
If you want some fantasy action, you can't really beat this show.
Yeah, it's hard to do better than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But our next show tries to. Let's get into this one, because I know a lot of people are probably waiting for it, because this was one doozy of an episode. It's Made in Abyss, episode 13, the season finale, called The Challengers. This was a 48-minute long double episode finale.
I'm so glad this was your wicked, not mine.
The alternate title for this episode was Loli Yuri in the Abyss. So, Reg is passed out after having driven off the orb piercer with his incinerator at the end of the last episode. So, Nanachi just drags him back towards her hut. And she thinks to herself, I've finally found it, Mitty. So, she's figured something out. We see a flashback of Nanachi when she was a human girl living in a slum at the surface with a bunch of other children in these small pipes or tunnels, clearly in poverty. The White Whistle with a black helmet named Bondrude approaches these children to recruit them. And he's from an area to the north called Sarani originally. But many of the children agree to go with him because it's better than living in these tunnels, including a red-headed girl who is clearly Mitty before she was turned into what she is now. Bondrude and his cave raiders take the children to the 5th level of the abyss, called the Sea of Corpses, which is 13,000 feet below the surface. And the red-headed girl, Mitty, makes friends with Nachi on the elevator ride down. She also wears very skimpy clothing. And though she appears to be a very young girl, she has like full-grown breasts, which are pushed up with a very tiny top to show as much cleavage as possible. It's just a very fan-servicey outfit for a girl who is probably like 10, maybe 12. Like, she looks really young, and all the other kids who are with them are extremely young looking. So she confirms that her name is Mitty and asks Nanachi to be her partner. Somehow, even though Nanachi seems to have grown up on the streets, she knows how to read. She's maybe taught herself. And not only human language, but also the glyphs from the abyss. And Mitty calls her the brains of their team, their partnership. The show also kind of heavily pushes Yuri between them, in my opinion. There's a lot of hand holding, there's a lot of blushing and touching and sleeping with their arms around each other. I mean, you could say like this is all friendship. I don't know. It's borderline pushing Yuri. But yeah, you could say it's all just cute girls being friends in a dangerous situation. But yeah. All the while, Bondrewd has been taking the small children one by one from their sleeping quarters, and they haven't been coming back. So he comes in, he asks Mitty to come with him late at night, leaving Nanachi all alone. She sneaks out of the room to try to see what the hell's going on, and she overhears an underling referring to Bondrewd as the Sovereign of the Dawn, and asking why he's bringing so many children to the Abyss. And the soldier says that bringing children who will never be able to return from this depth down to the 5th level is inhumane. But Bondrewd tells him, I'm not using them as humans, which scares Nanachi. She then runs off and she finds Mitty trapped in this glass tube. And
this is some brutal shit, dude.
Yes, it fucking is. So Bondrewd puts Nanachi in the tube next to Mitty, and he explains that these tubes are elevators that can quickly take you down to the 6th layer of the Abyss, where you will either die or lose your humanity. But the tubes are capable of concentrating the effects of the curse on one side only, so that one of the humans in the pair being sent down will be okay, but the other one will get the full effect of both of their curses. So Bondrewd tells Mitty to just endure the curse, because if she dies partway through...
It specifically calls the curse... a curse and a blessing, and what it does, it directs all the curse on the one side while only leaving the blessing on the right side.
Correct. Yeah.
And I know this because they go in more detail in the manga, which I picked up.
Oh, you did pick up? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I'm already caught up.
So yeah, if Mitty doesn't endure the curse, if she dies partway through, the curse will also affect Nanachi. So this gives Mitty some determination to just endure it for her friend. And
they really play it out.
Oh yeah, they send the elevators down, and when they land, the girls see several of the other children who look like what Mitty looks like in present time, with their faces split open, hollows. They kind of like crawl up to the tubes and try to like make noises like that. And they all look like Mitty's current state. Yeah, and so Mitty tells Nanachi she'll endure this, but if she loses her humanity, to let her soul return to Nanachi. So the elevators are pulled back up very, very quickly, and Nanachi transforms into her rabbit girl form. That's the blessing, I guess. But as she does, she watches as Mitty just literally starts to melt away very graphically. And break out with tumors all over her body, and then she's just bleeding, and she's a barely lifeless ball of pus by the time they reach the top. It's just horrible to look at.
Yeah, and if you think this is the most evil thing Bondrewd has done, go read the manga. He takes it another step. It's really bad.
Oh, great.
He then does something with those hollows.
Okay. Bondrewd keeps Nanachi as a research assistant. And he tells Nanachi that he understands more about Mitty's affliction now. She didn't lose her humanity, he says, but also is now incapable of dying, so she's immortal. Bondrewd has resurrected Mitty 9 more times, and she hasn't died. She's only grown slightly more distorted each time. And he's like, she even regrows some limbs every time I send her down. He's such an evil bastard. Nanachi has had enough of this cruelty, though, and decides to escape from the facility with Mitty on her back. They make it back to the hut, and at this point, Nanachi sets about finding a way to put Mitty out of her misery. And that was an interesting twist. This is the reason why Nanachi becomes so knowledgeable about medical science and being a doctor. It's to find a way to kill Mitty, to put her out of her misery. It's one hell of a reason to learn medicine. Back in present time, Nanachi explains to Reg that Bondrewd told her of Sparagmos, the light that returns to the cardinal point, is what he calls it, which hit one of Mitty's eyes and caused it to be the only part of her that couldn't regenerate. So that is why Nanachi is hopeful that Reg's incinerator could potentially put Mitty out of her misery. But Reg is concerned. He asks, has Mitty truly lost her humanity? Which Nanachi thinks she has, though sometimes suspects that Mitty's soul is still trapped inside her shell of a body somewhere. But Reg also worries that Nanachi will lose her reason for living if Mitty is gone. There's a brief funny scene intermittently where Reg tries to cook dinner since Nanachi only knows how to make horrible food, but he somehow manages to make the food even taste worse, so he's no better. But after some thinking, after this scene, Reg approaches Nanachi again to discuss Mitty, and he asks if she thinks Mitty is unhappy being together with her. But she gets what he's saying, but tells him, I'm going to die one of these days, and when I do, Mitty will be left all alone for all of eternity. So she tells Reg that this is Mitty's last chance at like regaining her dignity, basically. So Reg asks Nanachi to promise that she won't kill herself after Mitty is gone, or even after she's done treating Reg agrees, and then finally Reg reluctantly says he'll send Mitty off. Nanachi creates this sort of death pyre for Mitty to die on and surrounds her with a bunch of stuffed animals. She whispers to Mitty that it won't be long before they can meet again.
I thought the visual in the scene was very important because she puts out like a nice blanket and sets up all these stuffed animals around her, and you feel truly sorry for her. Like, it really makes you feel like she's just a child, which she is.
Yeah.
So I thought the visuals were like really important because it made me feel pretty hard for the scene.
I think this was the most brutal part of the episode, even more so than the elevator scene, just in terms of emotional impact.
Yep.
Reg raises his hand and charges the incinerator, and he's got tears in his eyes. And as he's just about to fire the incinerator, Nanachi screams out, "Wait!" and then runs to Mitty saying she was wrong. She apologizes to her, saying that we'll always be together. And I at this point I was thinking she's not going to go through with it. She's just not going to do it. I was like, oh wow. But then she walks back to Reg and says, "Do it." And so Reg actually does fire his incinerator this time. It destroys everything in sight, including the stuffed animals, and removes all trace of Mitty. So it did work. And then...
yeah, it's kind of a roller coaster ride there.
Yeah, that was a real roller coaster, because I guess, I don't know, she felt that she needed to say one last goodbye, or just to say how she really felt, because she was a little too calm about how it was going. So I guess that's what it was. But
yep.
Reg and Nanachi hold each other as they just break down in tears, and Reg falls asleep that night. And then he has an interesting dream. He's dreaming of eating food with Liza, Rico's mom, by a campfire. And he feels very sad, but he doesn't understand why. And then he wakes up to find that Rico has finally returned to consciousness. They can't hug because she's still too weak, but he's clearly relieved to see her back up and going. And this good feeling immediately got kind of undercut for me because Rico is like rubbing her face and hand all over Nanachi's body as she cooks, which I felt was like kind of Yuri fan service again. Rico succeeds though at making pan-fried demon fish, and Nanachi like tears up when she eats it because it's basically the first good tasting thing she's ever had in her life.
Well, Nanachi being really soft is an ongoing thing. Even Regu gets all in on it later.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Doesn't he ask her right now, like, why can she touch you like that when I can't? And she's like, well, because you're a pervert. And I was just like, yeah, well, I don't know. I don't understand why that scene exists in this episode. There was no point.
Keeps going on. It keeps happening in the manga.
As they're enjoying their meal, Rico asks, wasn't there someone else here too? And Nanachi and Reg are just silent. But Nanachi asks, how did you know about that? How'd you know there was somebody else? So Rico says she had this frightening dream where she was trapped inside a boulder and the space around her kept shrinking. This is when she had the poison in her. And she didn't even know if she was human anymore. But then an eye approached her in the dream. It was clearly Mitty's eye that was like looking through a crack in this boulder. And in her eye, Rico saw the longing of every cave raider she ever knew. And it encouraged her to keep going. And Reg explains to Nanachi how Rico had died once and her life could very well be deeply tied to the abyss. But Nanachi tells him it's okay, and just keep protecting Rico. So then the three of them go to a hot springs because I don't know why. Rico asks Reg to help take her clothes off. I'm just like not having this. Rico and Reg take a bath in the hot springs together.
I completely tuned out at this part too.
Yeah. Nanachi sits off to the side and Rico then notices that Reg has a boner. He tries to hide it, and Nanachi tells him not to be shy about it. Riko asks, "What's this about a kiss?" Because like Nanachi mentions like, "Why are you so like shy around her? You already kissed her." But she's talking about the CPR that he did to her one time, and so Riko's like, "You kissed me. What's this? What's this?" It's just a dumb kind of lighthearted scene. The only thing that I got out of it is that Nanachi is looking at the two of them, and I think she's kind of vicariously living through them a little bit, wishing that it was her and Mitty being able to interact like this, like they were just stealing again.
If I'm thinking of stealing kisses with CPR, is that the Sandlot where that happens?
Yes, the Sandlot. Susie, what's her name? Wendy Peppercorn. I think Peppercorn.
Yes, that's right.
That was a very good scene in that movie.
It's every young boy's dream.
God, don't actually ever do that though. That's fucking terrible.
Yeah, that is terrible, but it's good for a funny movie, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's the only kind of thing you can only get away with if you were like 12 years old. All right, so Nanachi thinks to herself that she's thankful to Mitty for bringing Reg's treasure, Riko, back to him. So after that hot spring scene, it's back to more torture porn, as it's time to remove the mushrooms from Riko's arm. So we see Riko's just agonizing face as Nanachi cuts the mushrooms out of her, and Reg holds her hand. The show is also kind enough to show her pissing herself one more time out of pain.
Just one last time. Just one thing on torture porn, which is kind of, you can also call it morbid curiosity.
Yeah.
I kind of like that stuff, but she's too young for this.
I agree. It's just
there's no
too much. Yeah.
Like there's one manga I read called Dead Tube, and that's what it's full of.
Torture porn.
And I enjoy it because they're at least high schoolers, and I think it's cool. And usually it's some arrogant bitch that gets a fucking katana sword through her stomach, but that stuff's cool. Not when it's just this little girl and then like, you know, she's got to piss herself every time. And I'm like, why?
Yeah, it just feels kind of exploitative. You remember when we were watching Alice and Zoroku, when Alice got trapped in the back of the car, got shot in the leg, and then like pissed herself. It's that same thing. It's like they're like the same age almost, these two girls. Alice might be a little younger. I don't know. It's around the same age. And it just feels over the top and completely unnecessary. And the thing is, it's like in the middle of this beautiful episode of anime that's so artistic and just moving and emotional. And then you have like her pissing herself. And it's just like, what the fuck?
Once. This is like the fourth time,
and
I
it's
think.
Clearly the author of this manga or light novel, whatever it is, I think it's a manga, has just a fetish for this stuff. Like, it's so clear at this point to me.
Oh, don't worry about it. No, I can't talk about the manga.
No spoilers, because this is a big series. After the surgery, we see Riko trying to recover movement in her hand, and she's able to twitch her thumb a little bit, which is very encouraging that she might recover full dexterity at some point. Reg apologizes to Riko for making such an unskilled cut in her arm, but Riko reassures him that it's what she told him to do. And then, also she says that Nanachi told her that when Reg was freaking out over her body, it's what reminded Nanachi of her relationship with Mitty, and it's the only thing that made her try to save them. Because she basically saw herself in Reg trying to save her friend. So Riko asks Nanachi if she'd consider joining them on their journey, and Nanachi agrees, surprisingly. Seeing Riko and Reg happy together makes her happy, and since Mitty took a liking to Riko, she thinks Mitty would be upset if she just left her alone now. So she's going to go with them from now on. The show continues on with this absolutely stunningly beautiful montage, which I think is original to the anime, as far as I've heard, is not in the manga. The three kids send a balloon back towards the surface, passes through all of the layers of the abyss, and also by many of the people that they've met along the way.
No, it is unique to the anime.
Yeah. It's a really nice touch. They make all sorts of preparations also for continuing their journey on into the abyss. They get a lot of materials together. They prepare a bunch of medicine. They continue to rehabilitate Riko's arm and build like a new backpack and stuff. As all this is going on, the balloon is continuing to rise up, and it finally lands on the surface and is retrieved by Nat and Shiggy up at the top. And I think they actually retrieve it at the exact spot where Riko originally found Reg when he had like fought off the Crimson Splitjaw in the first episode.
Huh.
I think it's the exact same like cliff point, if not something very similar. And just the music during that whole sequence, it was extremely good. It was such a good touch to the whole scene.
I'm in complete agreement with everything you're saying right now.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing else I can really add to it.
Yeah.
The only thing I want to add, if you do want to pick this up in the manga, it's chapter 26, and it's about 3/4 of the way through that chapter. The chapters for Made in Abyss are massive. They're almost entire anime episodes.
Oh, interesting.
And it goes up to, I think, chapter 42 at the moment. So you got a decent amount of reading left, but...
We also got one more cliffhanger with the show that Bondrewd is looking at these like Nixie tubes. Like they're the tubes from like the clock in Steins Gate, or the divergence meter or whatever in Steins Gate. And he's looking at those and he noticed that one of them, which indicates Midi's life force, has gone out. And he thinks to himself that he wants to see Nanachi again. So yeah, I don't know. I wish this freaking show had some self-restraint with like the fan service and with the torture porn, because I feel like it would be so much more interesting that way. However, I understand like it definitely hooks a lot of people because of that weirdness. But I just felt it could stand on its own without that. It's such a good story. It has such great world building. So,
and it looks really good. The manga looks just the same, so you're losing no quality.
Yeah,
it's really good to see that the animators did pull straight from the manga's quality and just didn't mess with it all.
I feel like from the pictures from the manga that I've seen, like specifically of that like hot springs thing in this episode, like Riko's breasts are a lot more defined in the manga drawing. Like I feel like they absolutely toned that down for the anime. Made her a little bit less sexless. I saw a picture that like showed her breasts clearly in the manga, like little tiny mounds.
I did not get to see that scene specifically, but I have not noticed any difference.
Oh, okay, interesting. Well, I could be
so
wrong.
Far.
I did see that picture though, so I don't know. Maybe it's just that one scene.
It may be just that one scene.
So yeah, I don't know. This show was so good, and then there was so many things I hated about it. It's so conflicting for me.
You're sitting here and you're like, I want to love you. Why won't you let me?
I know it's been a definite roller coaster with this series. More good than bad, 100% at the end of the day. But
I agree.
Yeah. Anyway,
but that bad is just such an eyesore.
Really is. It's just some
it's
of
like
the
having
stuff
a really
I hate
nice
the most.
car and there's just this fucking 2-foot scratch down the side.
And like you said, like I've said in the past, like, I think a lot of my uncomfortableness with this series could just be solved by them being a few years older. Like just a bit more adult, and I would let almost all of these things slide. So yeah,
I agree. You ready to move on?
Yeah.
18 If, final episode 13, Eve's Sigh. Our trio of Haruto, Lily, and Katsumi make their way through the door to find a large field of white lilies. But back in the real world, one of the previous witches contacts Kasumi, telling him how giant white lilies are now taking over everything and the sky is turning dark. There's also 2 moons that reminds him of the dream world, which is weird. And Aya is obviously all excited about it, and he's just like, this is the time, Eve is coming away, blah, 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 blah. So Katsumi gives Haruto an earbud so he can also listen into the girls in the real world. They also inform him of his condition, and he's just kind of shocked that he's been in this coma for who knows how long, is some accident. But Aya, while praising Eve, gets lifted up into the sky by one of the lilies, and then it, like when it blooms, it flips him off, and he's just like, yay, as I assume he falls to his death.
Yeah,
because it goes like as high as his cathedral place. So yeah, you're definitely dead. Haruto says he doesn't care why he was chosen. It's more important now that they just saved the world at this point. But he does again bring up the argument of why doesn't Lily kill Eve instead. She finally reveals that she is Eve, specifically Eve from before she ate the fruit from the Tree of Knowledge. Haruto asks what will happen when he kills Eve, and Lily says, you will have your answers when Eve is dead. And also, since Eve will die, and Lily is Eve, she will die also. Another door appears at the end of this conversation, and they enter to find themselves strangely in Haruto's room. A woman turns around in a chair, and Lily says, "That is Eve." And she looks different than she looks. She's an older person. Lily's like a young girl.
Yeah.
Eve says she knows exactly what Lily is up to, and she will follow through with her grudge against God and destroy the world he created anyways. But just before they start the fight, 4 of the witches show up. They have arrived because Haruto has saved them, they explain. Eve is pissed because God said that women should obey men, but the other girls explain that's an old way of speaking, and they keep giving her cute pet names like Evie, Pie, and Evetta all along the way.
That's so weird, but I really liked it.
Each witch, every witch shows up, and each one gives her a different pet name.
It's really cute.
The 2 idol witches who are there explain how the women are in charge now, and for them, they are practically get worshipped by masses of men. True. Eve likes the idea that there's a gap between God's will and the human world. Basically, we're getting to the point that Eve is just super pissed at God and the fact that men were supposed to have power over women. If anybody knows anything about the Bible, you know that little bit of stuff in there. The witches would prefer to have a discussion with Eve before anything too rash happens. So it's funny, they all sit down, they're having like a tea party, and they make Haruto and Katsumi they're butlers, and they're serving the girls like the tea and the little cakes and so stuff. And Eve is just thrilled that the guys are serving the women. Eve explains that God punished the humans for her mistake, and she must destroy the world to make up for it. One of the other witches appears and says, yes, it was her fault for getting bullied, but you must not think that way. Another witch shows up and says, she's not the one at fault, it's the snake. You were simply tricked. And she shouldn't dwell so much on her one mistake, because those mistakes are a part of who they are as humans. This is starting to get very dialogue heavy. And just like the other episode, I'm just got to do some summaries. Otherwise, I would just be typing out the script at this point. Yeah. It is so word for word crazy. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, yeah. You just go watch the episode.
I mean, like we said before, the synopsis will get you the gist of the episode if you can't watch it or if you just like listening to us. But moving on, the one witch that killed the people that murdered her family agrees with Eve that she should destroy the world. She has to, like, her soul will never be untainted otherwise. So Eve still wants to destroy the world, but Hana shows up with a good point. She is thankful that Eve ate the apple because it's what allowed them to have many different emotions and experience them. This finally starts to calm down Eve's heart, as the show puts it. And then there's this really super cute scene of like one of the girls offering a bite of cake to Eve, and she goes, ah, but then she like glares at her, and then all the other witches go, ah, and then she feeds it to him, and I was like, that was awesome, and I rewatched it twice.
That's funny.
In the end, they convince Eve to learn about the world before she comes to a decision. Quickly back in the real world, the lilies wilt away and the sky turns back to normal. Lily goes up to Eve, and Eve asks Lily to show her the world and to teach her about all these things that these witches love. She kisses Lily and they form into one. Basically, Lily forms into Eve. And then another door appears that they say transcends space and time and goes into God's realm. Eve turns to Haruto and Lily's voice says to kill her. He refuses, and Urina says he should kiss her and it might turn her into a normal girl like it did before. Before Haruto kisses Eve, he wants to know how he will wake up and if he can even go through that other door. But then he does decide to just go through the door with Eve. When he goes through the door, we see his body in the real world flatline. Later on, Kasumi is back at the bar with some of the girls, complaining he hasn't heard anything from Haruto. He's visited the dream world a couple times, been looking for him, but can't find him at all. One of the girls thinks that maybe Haruto was Adam. Since there was an Eve, there has to be an Adam. And then the final shot of Lily's arm reaching to Haruto's arm saying, welcome, brother. And the show ends.
Yeah, so it's interesting that Haruto in the end decided to stay in the dream, basically, and not wake up to that world, but kind of accept.
Well, he wasn't even sure if he was going to wake up.
Yeah, that's true.
When
he wasn't
left.
Even sure what was really happening. The one loose end that kind of bothered me was what was up with like the doctor who looked like an evil version of Haruto. I don't know what that was about. It's very unclear.
I thought about that too, but could he have been God?
Maybe he was like the evil part of Adam after leaving the Garden of Eden.
The other split version was my other thought. Also, him and however you want to say his name.
Char Aznavour is how I want to say his name. From Mobile Suit Gundam.
Why were they even in it?
I don't know. I really don't know. That was just like an added...
You could have easily written them out and it would have been fine.
Yeah, there was no need whatsoever to have him in the show. Like, he did nothing. He really added nothing to the show. It's kind of strange.
Yep.
Also, it's kind of funny
really
to have all
it.
this lily imagery. Like, white lily flowers do represent like purity, but also in anime they are very often used to represent like lesbian relationships or yuri relationships. Yuri is also how you pronounce lily in Japanese, so that's why.
Yeah, but
there wasn't that much of that in this episode. Like, there was a kiss, but like that was basically it. I don't know.
Yeah, but it was like the same person kissing themselves. So, like, the show even said, I don't think that counts.
I also want to brag that I was totally right about Lily and Haruto being brother and sister a lot of episodes ago. So I called that one. But yeah, I didn't get a ton out of this episode, though.
So Adam and Eve are brother and sister? In the Bible?
I don't remember because I haven't read the Bible in a really long time.
I'm just asking.
They're just like the first created couple by God, right? I don't know if they're brother.
And how do we reproduce?
That's a good question, though. But Lily does constantly refer to Haruto as her brother.
Yeah, and even in the very final scene, she says, "Welcome, brother." Right. So.
Yeah, I also thought this episode kind of like had like a feminist message, or at least it was going for that. But then,
oh yeah, definitely. But
then it like kind of fell flat when all the girls finished bitching about the men, and Eve was like, "But Haruto saved us all."
I think they were just kind of being humorous with it, and I'm totally cool with that.
Yeah, that's cool. That's fine.
Because they were being humorous with it, and even the two guys are like, "We know this is kind of for show at the moment, and you know we're really." More or less, we were equals. One of the girls at one point said, he helped us along. He never ran ahead. He was always by our side, saying that, he treated us as equals. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
So, yeah, that I think that was the feminist message. And I'm glad they went with the equal one.
Yeah.
And not that they're always being downplayed or whatnot. So, it's nice to see a little bit different twist.
All in all, fucking... what a cool series. Like,
yeah,
even with its ups and downs, cool. Like it was an awesome show to watch from week to week.
The only down I have is the one episode where I still don't even know which girl it was that was in the real world. Where they, where they were like, I can't even remember, or he ended up killing his friend with the glasses, and like I have no idea still what that was about.
Yeah, that was a crazy episode. Pol Pot, that episode? Is that the one?
Yes, Pol Pot, yeah. Thank you.
That was, yeah. I mean, I did so much research to try and figure out what the hell was going on with that, and I am not entirely sure.
Yeah, that was the only episode I had a problem with. Seeing the whole series now made me like it a little bit more. Because I may have not enjoyed some of the earlier episodes as much, but after seeing the whole thing... and getting to revisit these characters in the final episode, I thought was fantastic and amazing.
That's good.
Yep.
It was a good choice to review.
Yeah, and you want to do final season scores for shows?
I think we should, so let's do this. So, let's get into the final scores for all of the shows that we watched this season. So, we'll go in the order that we started with. So, A Centaur's Life. My final... the word on this show is that it had no fucking clue what it wanted to be. It was just tonal whiplash the whole way. And when it wasn't tonal whiplash, it was just really boring. Like, it went from episodes about the Holocausts to episodes about why modern art is stupid to episodes about lolly fan service to episodes about fucking RPGs and arm wrestling. Like, it was so completely just all over the place. I give it a 2 out of 10 in the end. It was very disappointing.
So, my big things, never became invested in the characters, and the show was flat out all over the place. At times, completely boring as hell.
Yeah.
I just want the episode to end.
Literally watching grass grow.
Naming them. I will never get over that.
What an episode.
It's one of those things there. I'm like, somebody made this decision. Why?
It's like, you're going to say this about another show later, but it's like somebody made this for entertainment. It's just,
yeah.
It has to be entertaining.
Who and why thought this was a good idea? But I give it a 3 out of 10.
Okay, that's
2
fair.
for something worse.
Yeah, 2 is pretty bad, but there's things about this that really annoyed me. So yeah, that's pretty bad score. That was one of my locks. So I apologize to everyone.
Damn right.
Let's move on to the next one.
Yep. All right. Princess Principal. They could have stretched out the last 2 episodes and replaced some of the filler earlier episodes to focus more on the actual plot of the show. We talked about this last time. Yeah. I think that's the most obvious thing they could have done. The OP and ED was the bomb this season, though.
It was real good. Yeah.
I really need to go pick up the soundtrack because I loved it. But in the end, the good, it definitely outweighed the bad. Probably really even with how Made in Abyss barely was better than it was bad. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, the whole middle of this show was kind of a big meh for me. Like, with the possible exception of that Loudly Laundry episode, which was a really fun, self-contained episode.
Yeah, that's the only one I would call filler, but I liked it.
But I liked it, yeah, that's the thing.
And they could have they can leave. You can have your filler episode, just make it a good one.
Yeah, and there were things that like kind of went nowhere, like those thugs that kept showing up in different episodes, and I don't know. And like, yeah, I talked about last week about the finale and all the problems I had with the finale being kind of rushed because they spent so much time on backstory when they really didn't need to.
So I just kind of had this thought. Do you feel like they may have or were in the process of writing a 24 episode series and then told they had to do a 12 instead?
That's very possible because it kind of plugged along like it was going to be a 24 episode series. Mm-hmm. Kind of like how I felt with parts of Made in Abyss. Like it was going at like a very like average rate. Made in Abyss did not feel like it was rushing to get where it needed to go. Like at least early on. And now I feel like that kind of makes sense because there is a lot more manga chapters, like you said. I'm very confident Made in Abyss will get a second season. Like of all the shows that aired this season, Made in Abyss will probably get another season, even though it hasn't been announced yet. But as for Prince of Principal, 5 out of 10, like perfectly average. Like I really loved that first episode of the show, but nothing after that ever lived up to it, except maybe the second episode. But yeah, that's about it. So I'll move on to the next one, which is Restaurant to Another World. I've talked about this a lot. I felt this fell victim to its own formula and just was boring more often than not, unfortunately. Also it suffered from some fairly weak food animation at times for a food show. And it just never developed its main characters beyond like a few traits and like a few cute scenes. So I gave it a 4 out of 10 because it's not quite average to me. It's just a little bit below that because of the flaws with the narrative.
I think this would be a good show to put on while you're cleaning or cooking or maybe even trying to fall asleep because it's enjoyable enough, but it's nothing spectacular. And if you miss a scene, you're not going to miss out. But like I said, it was really enjoyable. Didn't have anything spectacular going for it. Maybe if they had delved more into the backstory on the characters and heightened the animation for the food, I would have given it a better score. But right now, it's straight down the middle. It's a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
If I give something a 4, it's because I think I would consider it bad. And I don't consider it bad.
Yeah, for me, it was like a 4.5 or something for me. It was just south of average for me. So, yeah.
All right. So, Suridure children. Don't compare this show to other 10s and 9s in a regular show. This show is a short, and basically shorts get their own category. So far as shorts go, I've never seen a better short. It delivers so hard in the rom-com genre, it is frightening. It gets a big fat 10 out of 10 for shorts. Woo. Not regular shows, for shorts.
10 out of 10.
I have not seen a better short. Flat out.
Yeah, I was trying to think about better shorts that I've seen, and there's a very short list of anything that could even compare. I don't know.
Its formula is so perfect for just the little couples they have, and they just jump around. The formula is nailed. I don't like if I can look at a show and can't think of any way to make it better. I mean, what else can I say but give it a 10? Really, for the most part.
For sure. For me, I almost have the same thoughts as you do on the show. Like the only thing that stops me from giving it a 10 is that there were certain couples that I wasn't completely invested in, and just I don't know. I just felt that at certain points in the series, I felt like I wanted something that like slightly different than what they were doing. But like I just loved it. I'm just also very reluctant to give a series a 10 like right off the bat unless it completely blows me away. And this didn't didn't completely blow me away. It like really got me though. So I'm gonna go with a 9 out of 10. I loved this show.
That's definitely a very fair score. I've never looked more forward to reviewing a show than probably this one in the first place.
Please make a second season. Please.
That's hard pressed if they do. But what do you wish they would have done different?
The final episode, I wish they had planned out the narrative a little bit more. So the final episode had several more plots converging at the end. Because I liked how, as the series was going on, like a lot of the couples were kind of like influencing each other, and I wish that it had just been a little bit more tightly planned out so that you got a bunch of big payoffs like all at once at the end. Like we got payoffs with those two couples, and they were nice, but they were also like kind of the most like normal rom-com couples that out of everybody in the group. Everybody else was
your
like
least favorites, basically.
Yeah, everybody else was like super wacky or like super sexy or super weird, and I kind of liked those other couples a little bit more. But yeah, I don't know. It's so close to a 10 for me though. Like it's like
I can't fault the ones I disliked the most because I thought they were all great, and really what I really liked was the variety between everybody's relationships.
Yeah.
So nothing never got old or tired for me. So I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, I just want to see more of this show or just more shows in this same format going forward. And
I need to go read the manga, but I do not know where it starts. So I'll have to figure it out.
I think we can figure that out. Yeah. So I guess I'll take the next one, which is Sakura Quest. So if you remember back to me reviewing like the first half of this last season, it took a long time for this show to hook me. Like I liked it off the bat. I was like, I was excited because it was a new PA Works show, and I'm a huge PA Works fan. But it was a little bit slow. It took its time introducing all of the main characters before it really built up the town very much. But then once it did, it really got going, and it really capitalized off of building up those characters and making you care about them and telling you about their history. And a lot of that came through in the second half of the show. I remember, I think going into the second half, I had this rated either a 6 or 7 out of 10. And then it just kept rising each week. And then in the end, I end up at like an 8 out of 10 because I think the beginning was a little bit uneven. And it doesn't stand up to PA Works' best shows like Shirobako and Hanasaku Iroha, which are just fantastic. And I love them to death. And they just like destroy me emotionally at certain points. But it's so good though. It's such a 8 out of 10 is what I would rate like a very good to great show. So it's a really good grade for me. I just know that PA Works can do a little bit better than this when they're like at their peak. So that's why it's a little bit notch below a 9 for me. How about you?
I agree with a lot you were saying. I felt like if this series was a sprint, they stumbled a little bit in the beginning, but didn't lose much ground. But they're the fastest runner out there, so they gained a lot of the game back up and far exceeded. And I was really debating a 7 or an 8 for this show. But I finally decided, if you're going to make me tear up on the final episode, well, you've done a really good job of this anime to make me care that much.
That's true. That's definitely true.
First season, they could have done some things better. The little Maki mini arc with the movie was probably the lowest point. I just felt like it was a small dip, but I felt like they recovered very well after that. And then they just did nothing but continue to get better and better and better. And just each episode I was completely invested. I already said that, like, not only was I invested in these girls, but I became invested in the town.
Yeah.
I have never done that.
Yeah.
That's insane. I'm invested. Like, I can become invested in a character, but I don't necessarily get invested in what they are invested with. And I did, totally, on my own accord. I gotta give it a 9 out of 10.
Oh, that's great.
Got to.
Yeah, I would say another anime that I watched recently that gets you really invested in sort of the town, but more the shopping district is KyoAni's...
Cheerfruits?
Oh, not Cheerfruits. No, Sakura Quest is much better than Cheerfruits. But Tamako Market, where she is she's the daughter of this mochi bakery owner. And like, she's so well supported by everybody who is in this marketplace, as that are like her extended family, that by the end of the series, you kind of get to know all of them a little bit. And they're all quirky, kind of like Sakura Quest. I feel like Sakura Quest kind of drew a little bit of inspiration maybe from Tamako Market in building out its town. So if you're looking for more of the same, I would say that. I would also say I'm actually looking forward to someday going back and rewatching this series, knowing where all of the characters end up and how they end up being, and seeing how they start out again, because it might be more interesting to watch after one complete watch is finished. So
I think I would like to watch it with a group that hadn't seen it.
Yeah, that'd be kind of fun.
That'd be really fun, because I'd really like to hear their thoughts, and then most likely probably have some of the same thoughts I had at one point in time, but then changed later on, just so I can go, I know you're going to change your mind.
Yeah, I had fun doing that with Rage Bahamut recently. The second season I was watching through with some people.
Yeah, if you do a group with Sakura Quest, let me know, because I want to be there just to be like, oh, just wait.
I will let you know. Why don't you take this next one?
So, gamers, my thing is, I can't really recommend the show to anybody because it does have really good moments. Like, I really love the Game of Life episode, but you can't justify watching an entire show just for that one scene.
Yeah.
So it gets a 5. It's not good. It's not bad. Somewhere in the middle. It's mildly entertaining. I don't have a favorite character. I have a worst, Uehara.
I think my favorite character ended up being Aguri for a variety of reasons. I think she was like the heart of the show. Like,
if I was held at gunpoint, Konoha.
Yeah.
Second, definitely Aguri.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's hilarious. So like, Aguri's like non-existent like the first couple episodes. Yeah. And we just basically kind of dislike the other three. I don't even think I dislike Karen. She's just kind of...
She's a goofball. There. She's like a goofball. She's a little crazy. She's fine, but she didn't get like any... She didn't get many big moments to shine. Like Karen's big moment to shine was at the pool, when they went to the pool and stuff, and then they were doing stuff like Keita and her were on her like first date.
Oh yeah, true.
And she was kind of guiding him through it a little bit because he was so nervous.
And I will say the misunderstandings was just getting way overdone by the end.
Yeah.
I like my misunderstandings, but every single episode is going to be about misunderstanding. That's just like, I love mac and cheese, but an entire dinner of mac and cheese day after day is just kind of not cool, you know?
Yeah. And I will say, like, this series felt like kind of like a couple of different series to me, because the first episode and the last episode were all about like gaming meta commentary. And then all in between that was just this big misunderstanding rom-com that was like a completely different show. And so it was so weird. It was so messed with my expectations a lot right at the beginning. And yeah, I wish there had been more of those last two, or the first and last episodes, like a little bit more of the sandwich bread and a little bit less of the sandwich meat of this series. But overall, it leveled out to like an average experience for me. So I also gave it a 5 out of 10. And yeah, I think I liked Aguri the most because she was the one who, when she was misunderstanding things, it was so ridiculous that, and her voice actress did such an amazing job of portraying it that it did crack me up most of the time when she was struggling. And also just loved how like brutal she was with Kata. Like whenever they would meet at the cafe, she would just like no bullshit with him whatsoever. And yeah, she changed him as a person over the course of the series, more so than Karen changed him.
That's understandable considering the whole series is about misunderstandings and she's the one being straight up and forward.
Yeah.
So she's almost a welcome relief from it, you know?
I honestly would have been really happy if Kata and Aguri had decided to get together at the end of this series. Like, I just feel like they changed each other's people, like both of them, for the better.
Yeah.
But
I would have felt sad for Karen, but it probably was for the best.
Yeah, but Karen needed to like learn a lesson too. Like she needed to calm the hell down. And Tasuku, I don't want any, or Uehara or whatever, I don't want any happy ending for him because he's just an asshole.
Like, what about Chiaki, who is like clearly just being sidelined this whole time?
She can go say desu desu wherever she wants for as long as she wants.
Didn't they kind of stop that though?
Not really. There's like YouTube videos of compilations.
See, I just never noticed.
So. Oh, I noticed like every single time every time she did a double thing, I noticed. Especially the one I pointed out. I remember like when she didn't even say a word. She just went like, I was just like, she just like made a grunting noise twice. I was like, God damn it, it's so annoying.
Oh boy.
But I know a lot of people, that's like an endearing thing for a lot of people, like speech tics and anime and stuff like that. But hers got on my nerves for some reason or another because it was so blatantly like a cuteness thing that they were going for. But
do you know anybody in real life who does anything similar?
I know people who have stuttered, but that's not like really a stutter. I don't know.
A stutter is more like a
That's
condition.
A speech disability rather than like a cute thing that they do when they talk. I don't know. It's a good question. When I meet somebody, I will let you know.
Please.
Real life cat girl who just says "nya" at the end of every sentence.
Yeah. All right. I would honestly probably find that annoying and be like, stop being a tryhard. But what's the next show?
So Rage of Bahamut, Virgin Soul. So in the end, this series did take a hit for me in the last few episodes because I didn't think it wrapped up quite as neatly as I hoped. And as even though I got all that, closure with Favreau and Amuro, which I had been hoping for, it was kind of a little bit out of the blue because they didn't set it up too much in this specific series. I mean, you had Favreau seeing like flashbacks of Amuro, but if you hadn't watched the first series of the show, you would be completely lost about like what's going on, I feel like.
True. But come on, Bcom, you got your wish. What more can you ask for?
Well, I could ask for the Cherios thing to have been handled better because I understand people's concerns about Cherios getting off scot-free almost. I mean, he is blind.
What? He's blind. Okay, what if he was more crippled? Would that be better?
I don't know. He still gets the girl, though.
That's true. As long as he still gets Nina, he's always going to be the winner in the end.
It is a tragic romance, though. I mean, I don't know. I feel like... I don't know. I liked it. I liked that it had the balls to do that. Like, a lot of shows would never even consider having him win in the end in some way.
Not to mention, what if... Season 3, they make Cherios like Cheerios.
Cheerios. Yeah.
Cherios like super redeemable and like amazing.
That would be, I think a lot of people would be annoyed.
Since now that Nina is basically his woman, she's not going to let him do any bad shit anymore.
Well, definitely a power couple now. Yeah. I don't know. I would love to watch a potential season 3. I hope that Cygames and Mappa keep collaborating on these types of anime in the future.
They made money the first season. I'm pretty sure this is stupid popular again. So of course, why not? And did I ever tell you the story that I used to play Rage of Bahamut on the phone?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I used to play it, and it was a really fun game. It's like a card game. I think what's that one that Mitz plays?
Oh, Puzzles and Dragons.
Puzzles and Dragons. That's, I think, the new one now. But at the time when I played, Rage of Bahamut was number one. That's also where I met our British friends. So.
Oh, cool.
But anyways, that's a tangent.
So yeah, in the end, I had this sitting at a 9 out of 10 for a long time, and then it went down to a 7 for me right at the end, like right over the last arc of the show. I would say, like from where Muguro dies on. I was just like, no, there's a little bit that's shaky here in the writing. I could probably be talked into an 8 out of 10, but I think I'm at a 7 with it. What did you think?
You've almost stunned me into silence. That's weird to see. It dropped 2 points. Because I don't feel like it was shaky at all.
I think it was. I think some things just didn't quite make sense for the characters. Like, I'm still not completely sold on Kaiser's motivations for standing up for Cheerios. Like, when Cheerios is clearly such an evil bastard. Like,
he's just, I don't know. Kaiser's just so gung-ho for, protecting the
crown.
Whatever their form of the government is, I guess.
Yeah, he's just so, like, honorable. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Earlier on, he had, like, that talk with Cheerios about we all should live together, but
yeah,
I guess Cheerios didn't really defend himself that well. It's a little strange he would throw himself in front of him.
Yeah, it's a little bit strange. I don't know,
but that didn't really bother me. I felt like Muguru's death was the absolute perfect catalyst to for all the events to start to happen as they did later on.
Narratively, it made a ton of sense. Yeah.
So I like the realistic aspect, and that's obviously what they did, like we already said, with Cheerios at the end. So I don't have a problem with that. I don't feel like it got shaky afterwards, other than, like you said, maybe Kaiser standing in front of Cheerios was a little weird, but still kind of in character. I gotta give it an 8 out of 10. It's one of the best action fantasy series out there.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a really good show. Like,
I really recommend it.
I would rather watch this than like so many other things.
Yeah, I mean, like, I really recommend this. Even if you don't agree with things, I think people will still enjoy a ton of stuff out of it.
Yeah.
So, you got anything else?
Just like, I think one more thing that went into my decision making with that score was that the ending of this show was so similar to the ending of the first show, with like the angels and demons, like controlling Bahamut again, like joining forces.
I really liked it. I thought it was like a throwback to the last episode.
It was basically a reverse image of that, like, season finale of season 1, with Nina taking the role of Favreau and making a different choice. Like,
yeah, and I would not like to see them do that in season 3 unless they like do it in some like really weird, twisted, blindsided way. Then I'd be fine. Yeah. But other than that.
All right, why don't you take the next one?
So, Made in Abyss. You guys know we loved and hated lots of things about this stuff. Barely loved some of the stuff. This is probably one of the weakest 6s I have given yet. So it's 6 out of 10.
Interesting. Yeah. I like you said, I kind of loved and hated things about the show in equal measure. But in the end, I felt like the good just barely outweighed the bad. I will say, I think this show will probably be the most remembered show from this season, like years from now. Just because it is so unique. Over Rage. Yeah. Because it's so much more unique. That it stands out more than Rage. Rage is a very well executed fantasy story, but Made in Abyss is like a special production in terms of anime. Like, you just look at that first episode again. It looks so gorgeous. The music is fantastic. The character designs really stand out. And then, for better or worse, the gore and like the weird fan servicey parts and like the weird fetishy focus on piss and all of that stuff is going to be something that's memorable, for better or worse. But for me, like, a lot of that stuff hurt the series in my eyes, because I felt that it could have been something really special if it hadn't given into those like base desires to like serve these fetishes up to whatever audience the authors thought he was serving them to. So for me, it's also a 6 out of 10 in the end, because it gets brought down so much by a few little things that just really stand out like a black eye to me.
Yeah, that's we're in agreement this season so far.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, next show, 18 If. I was so happy we picked this show up. Like, this show came out of the blue for me at the beginning of the season. I had no idea it would be anywhere near this good. I just gave it a shot and saw that it was really being kind of ambitious, and there was a really interesting director behind it. But in the end, the narrative was like a little bit disjointed. You know, like, it was so episodic, and I don't think all of the episodes really hit their mark. There was a few here and there that
well, it's episodic because each episode, a bunch of each episodes are about a specific witch. So yeah, you could mix up that middle portion, which is, I think, fine. But I think the way it tied it up at the end was just like, perfect.
It did tie it up well at the end. I just feel like there were some episodes along the way where it was just like, I have no idea what this show is trying to say. Or if it is trying to say the thing I think it's trying to say, it didn't do it in like the most effective way.
Well, like you just said, some of the episodes are almost episodic. So that's their point. Like, you could put that up against Cowboy Bebop and I would not dock it for that.
That's true. That's a good point. But yeah, it's overall like ambition as just like a showpiece for different directors every episode with different animation and art styles made it really enjoyable,
which is amazing
and fresh to watch.
I want to see more shows that do that can do that.
For sure.
You can't do that with every anime, obviously. They have to be specific, like something like 18F, but it's cool.
For me though, like, yeah, it just did not hit all the time, but when it hit, it was really good. For me, it averaged out to also a 6 out of 10. Which is a good score. It's better than average for sure. So what about you?
So I liked all the witches' stories except for the one. Basically because we had no closure. We never knew what happened with that witch and her story.
Yeah.
All the other ones we know. I thought the flow of the show was very nice. Even though you said it could have been episodic, I think even if you shuffled them, this was probably the best shuffle you could get.
Yeah.
And the different art styles and directors was just... that was awesome. I love this idea. I love this concept. Every week I was like, oh man, let's see what art style did they go with this week and which director, how did they do things. And that's just really cool. And just to see the wrap up in the end was good. And I feel like I have closure with the very ending of this story. Unfortunately, I felt like it's a hidden gem that will probably not be remembered because not too many people are watching it. But I give it a very, very solid 8 out of 10. And I'm hurt that you gave it a 6.
Get over it.
You should have at least given it a 7.
I think some people will watch it now that it'll get a little bit of hype.
This is better than average, better than a 6.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, 6 is better than average for me. I have a weird, strict grading scale that...
yeah, we know who the cynic is.
Yeah.
If you go by our scores.
Yeah. Except about the next show, which I guess I'll let you review first, because I think it's your turn.
So, Action Heroine Cheer Fruits. Oh, yeah, you did go first last time. I was like, wait, no, you didn't. But you did. Yep. So, over the pause. It's not that this show is bad or anything in particular. It's just not interesting. I mean, if you're going to be a form of entertainment, you have to be interesting. So I have to give it a 4 out of 10. I'm not saying like it's a terrible show. I'm just saying it's not average. I was bored. I would rather be doing... I should have rather been just sweeping the floors of my house or something. So
yeah.
Yeah, the 4 out of 10. What'd you think?
So I really liked the first episode of this show a lot, which played a huge part in me wanting to pick it up. And then it kind of got, it introduced all the girls. And after it did that, it kind of got a little bit samey. There was no like really standout episode, but I still did like the focus and the theme of like how these girls are entertaining the little kids in their town and giving these little kids something to look forward to and get excited about. And how they're helping their town out with all this stuff. And for the most part, it did not go into crazy fan service like a lot of idol shows tend to do, though it did have some of that, which I definitely commented on. But yeah, it was just like a feel-good show, and it was a good palate cleanser this season when we had like a lot of dark shows like Made in Abyss or 18 If was often dark. So watching this just, put a smile on my face more often than not, even if it was a pretty simplistic show in the end. So in the end, I just give it a 5. It's just a perfectly average show. You could take it or leave it. But I think you'll have some fun with it if you pick it up. So yeah. So that finishes off all of the episodes that we actually covered. But because I'm crazy and Leo's a little bit crazy too, there were a few anime that we watched and finished that we decided not to watch and cover for the entire season. But there were a few things I decided to, go check out because they were popular or because I was just morbidly curious on how they went. So the first one of those, because it was so popular, was Classroom of the Elite. This show is incredibly pretentious. It had like philosophical quotes at the beginning of every episode, and it was kind of pretending to be a lot smarter than it actually was. Specifically, it said like class.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because I only got a couple episodes in and I felt like that's what it was doing.
Oh yeah.
So I'm glad I dropped it now because in
the second half of the show, it becomes very clear to me that like these students are not elite. These are your normal class of like high school students acting like normally intellectual high school students would act, and they react to stupid things like getting their panties stolen, which like almost throws off an entire arc for the class, and like almost screws them over entirely. Just like a girl getting her panties stolen, like almost disrupts the entire season. Everybody says that the light novels for this show start to get better like right after this season ends. And if that's the case, like why didn't they rush through this material a little bit faster? They did all these like fan service episodes into like the middle end of this season that just added basically nothing for me. Maybe for some other people they added like boobs that they wanted to see, but I there was plenty of that already without like the pool episodes and everything. So, and then they went to the beach, and it's just like I don't know, man. Like people say they love this main character, and I have to question what the hell they like about him, because I know a lot of people compare him
because he's actually has a secret that you never find out.
Yeah, you never find out either in the show or in the light novels, apparently. Like even up to where the light novels are, his secret hasn't been explained.
Perfect.
But he's really not.
He's so perfect, he can make himself get a perfect average score.
I would just say to those people who like this character, please go watch Oregairu. Because my teenage rom-com snafu, whatever it's called, because Hachiman is a way better version of this character. Go watch Haruhi Suzumiya. Kyon is a way better version of this character. This character has been done before and has been way more personable and way more interesting, and not just a blank slate who just gets random girls like coming up to him thinking he's like the shit for no apparent reason. So yeah, this was a 2 out of 10 for me. I really strongly disliked this show and had a very difficult time finding what people actually liked about it. I'll go with my next one. Love and Lies, Koito Uso.
I have read the manga.
Yeah, I remember before the season started, you had told me that you'd read the manga and you were sure that I was going to love it and pick it up and it was going to make you so pissed off.
I was deathly afraid you were going to pick it up and I'd have to watch it.
Yeah, in the end, this show kind of killed itself for me in several ways. It really pissed me off because the way it starts out is that, the guy has to make a decision. He doesn't have to make a decision. He gets like a marriage assignment, right? And he was in love with this other girl, and then he gets a marriage assignment for a new girl. And he doesn't know what to do because he's in love and he wants to get married to the girl he's actually in love with. But in this society, they decide you're a marriage partner for you. But halfway through the season, they drop the bomb that you can refuse your marriage assignment. You get heavily penalized for it in society. Like, it may be harder for you to get a job. It may be harder for you to get a bank loan, like all these things, but you can refuse.
In the manga, it makes it sound like damn near impossible to do those things afterwards.
Well, they didn't portray that well enough in the show then, because like if you love,
like the consequences were extremely dire.
Yeah, it just proved to me, though, that when he decided that he was not going to refuse the marriage assignment and he was just going to go with it, essentially, that he didn't love the other girl enough. Like, if he loved her enough, he would have done it. Like, he would have refused the assignment. Like, it would have been more important to him. And I think that proves to me that his love was based on this, like, little, like, puppy love from elementary school, that they just had idolized each other in their minds. But really, like, the relationship that he built with his assigned partner, Rowena, was way more in depth. Like, they helped each other with, like, their problems and, like, grew as people together. Like, that was clearly the relationship that made more sense over the course of that series. But then the way that show ends, because it's ongoing, is with like basically a threesome ending. So not that they have a threesome, but that they are both taking like wedding photos together, because like the girls get asked to do to model for a wedding shoot. And so he goes to the chapel where they both are, and they take a picture together. Both of them are in wedding dresses. And that's how the show ends, essentially. Like, oh, they're both my waifu now because I'm so indecisive. But the last thing I'll say about the show is that the OP for this was my favorite OP. It's by one of my favorite Japanese bands, Frederick. And Kanashi Urashi was just a fantastic song. I loved the shit out of it. It was so good. But overall, I give the show a 6 out of 10. I really liked some of the characters. I really liked Rowena. And at times I liked, God, I forgot her name already, like Misaki maybe. I liked her as well, but Rowena was probably the star of the show for me. I thought some of the drama was well done, and it kept me interested the whole time. So that's why I give it a 6 out of 10.
My thoughts, without doing spoilers for the manga, is they got really, they could not decide what they wanted to do. It was just always back and forth between the two girls. And I was just getting really tired of nobody making a decision. So I ended up dropping this manga, and that's saying a lot for me. So
yeah, the indecisiveness was definitely like the lowest point of the show for me as well.
And that's what did it in. It kept going.
God.
And going. And going.
Speaking of things that keep going.
And then as soon as I saw it in the next updates, I didn't even open it again the next time and just fucking moved on.
So another show that I unfortunately finished, because it was a short mostly, I would not have finished this if it was not a short, was Netsuzou TRap, which was just a fucking piece of trash. That basically what it comes down to for me, my issues with the show is that half of the Yuri scenes in the show felt like rape. And the other half of the show, the other half of the scenes in this show were a boyfriend beating her girlfriend physically, and her explaining to her friend that she felt that she deserved it because of how she's an evil person. So 1 out of 10, because fuck that. Fuck everything about that show. Holy shit. So I'll quickly move on to my one last thing that I wanted to wrap up, which was Recreators, which I'll just get
I don't know why you gave it the score.
It's a 6 out of 10 for me. Dude, there is so much that I like, even more so than Made in Abyss. This show infuriates me with how I love so many of the concepts, and especially the final arc of episodes were so good in so many ways.
I would love to agree with you, but my blind rage at Sota
yeah.
blinded me literally from everything else in this show. Its premise is absolutely amazing. I really want to see the characters be like, I'm pissed off that you made this world, but then I realized you didn't even know and you were doing it for entertainment purposes. But we're too caught up in Sota, who fucking sucks.
For me, they were too caught up in exposition, and they didn't spend enough time having fun with the characters. In the final arc, they finally had a little bit of fun with some of the characters, and some of the characters had serious moments with their creators and with other creations as well. But
oh yeah, there was a cigar smoking guy. He had a really crazy thing going on.
Yes, that was one of my favorite parts of the show by far. Yeah, but the second to last episode where a certain character comes back and has a long discussion with Altair. There's some of the best writing of the whole series. It's very good, very well done. But yeah, like you said, like Sota was like a freaking black mark on this series. He was terrible character, irredeemable character for what they made him do. And like I also felt like uncomfortable when he became sort of a hero in the end by again exploiting the person who he had like treated so horribly in the beginning of the show. So anyway, it's a 6 out of 10 for me because I liked a lot about it. It never really lost my interest, even though it did like piss me off very much at certain points.
I went into that show expecting it to mess up, but I was completely blindsided by how bad it messed up.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't get to finish it. I only watched half of it. But the what was the analogy I made earlier? Like you have a nice car and there's a big 2-foot scratch on the side. Sota to me was like a Humvee slammed into your fucking Corvette sideways at 40 miles an hour. That's what he did to me for this show. It's almost as maybe it's comparable to a voice in the next season.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I cannot wait for next season's impressions.
Oh, this will be good. All right, I have one I did finish. It was actually only 10 episodes, which was My First Girlfriend is a Gal, Hajimite no Gal.
Oh boy.
It's a fan service show, so go into it expecting it, which is fine because it's allowed now. It's not little girls, or at least talking about high schoolers at least. But that's part of the reason why I watched it. I was very surprised to find out our main girl is a welcome relief of a girlfriend who is extremely understanding. Even when her friend and then the other guy's childhood friend trying to do shit, she understands it's them, not him. So I'm glad to see she doesn't misunderstand something and fucking ignore the fat friend that has to make a pedo joke every episode. Fuck that guy. It's literally there's one joke every single episode where he has to comment on little children.
Yeah.
That's it. So
see, for me, that ruined the entire show. Like it actively did ruin the show. Like I don't.
It hurts the show so bad, and then even the show itself will have the characters go like, "Dude, you need to go to jail," like things like that. So I'm like, why is it in here? So it's a 6 out of 10 because I enjoyed it. I would give it 7 with an asterisk if that guy was fucking gone. So as a fan service show, yeah, give it a shot. Just fucking mute it when it gets to the fat guy and then unmute it when he's gone and you're good to go.
I guess that's a plan that could work out.
Yeah, it's just like another black streak. Like you said, not as bad as Sota, but still just stupid and terrible and just why is it even put in the show?
So is that everything that we watched outside of this season?
That is everything. Is there anything you would like to add?
Well, I just want to. It's funny. We have from the beginning of the season, we have our picks still listed in this document. So I just want to see our consensus top 6 picks were, if you remember, Rage of Bahamut, Princess Principal, Gamers,
Such High Hopes,
Restaurant to Another World, Made in Abyss, and 18 If. I feel like we did pretty well with those top 6. Like, yeah, like Restaurant to Another World, maybe not. Gamers was pretty good, but the other 4 shows were pretty damn good actually. So I think we made good decisions there. Your locks,
yeah,
were
actually,
pretty good.
It was my 2 picks that disrupted everything: Software Quest, and when I changed mid-season to Suradure Children because it was such a good short.
Yeah. So your locks ended up being fantastic. My locks, which were Centaur's Life and Action Heroine Fruits, I apologize. I will try to do better in the future. So yeah.
That's awesome.
That's basically it. So by the way, our next episode obviously will be maybe in like a week or 2 because it's going to take a couple weeks for episodes of new fall anime to all come out and have enough content there for us to judge them
like we usually do so far.
Yeah, so we'll probably have a first half episode and then a second half following close after that.
Yeah, also with a little different bit of system. They're not going to be like full reviews. They're going to be very brief synopsis because there's just so many to go over. And if you're going to watch it, then you're probably going to watch it anyways.
Yep.
But is there anything else you'd like to add to the end of this?
No, that's it.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to us on YouTube to get updates on new podcasts or videos. And if you wondered who the biggest cynic is, it's obviously Bcom because of his ranking system. And also follow us on Twitter at Nerdom and Other for other updates as well. Thanks for listening. Later.
I am a cynic. Peace.